Alright, so I got a double check that I pulled out yesterday as a replacement. Uh, this was a customer picked up this year, and knew where the double check was the last time we were there, knowing that we were probably be winterizing the site. Everything visually looked okay. I mean, nothing I was going to say, yeah, we have to address that right now before we winterize. But this is a Wilkins 1 inch, I think it's a 950 double check valve assembly, and when we went to winterize it, the number one and number two test cocks were just wanted to strip out. So I knew, okay, so I need two test cocks. We already know that the handle, the handles are both pretty corroded, and I'm gonna set you up on the workbench here on the tool chest, and let's see. So that's first check, second check. Now, these handles should be fairly easy to turn. But let's see if, can you see it there? Yeah, kind of. Yeah, I mean, they weren't terribly bad. Yeah, they're stiff. The other thing with these double checks is when they look like this, pick you up there. There's no city tag in it saying it's been inspected. There's no annual test tag on it, so we know that it went in without a permit. Our chances are it went in without a permit. And then we have the gate valve, which if you've seen any earlier videos, I'm not a fan of gate valves. They leak, they break, and it's at the same level as the double check. So usually we'd have our shutoff valve at waterline depth in a warm zone, as I'd refer to it as. But it was on unions. They had everything squeezed into one box. Number two isolation handle was really up against the edge of the box. Like I said, I knew I was going to need both test cocks. It's not, so I recommended that we just go ahead and reinstall a new double check, that we get the permit, that we get it tested, and just get it brought up to speed. When I see something like this where it's got two strip test cocks, and then the handles already look like that, by the time I get done with it, it's a lot easier to get the permit, get the test done on it, and then just install a new one than fighting with this. And this one I can't remember if when I winterized, if it was failed between the checks. What happens is when we winterize, if we don't have a quick coupler, which we have a quick coupler or a drain valve, we'll hook it onto this, but normally what happens when we winterize is we'll open up this with, our blow-on system, and we'll start flushing water and air back to the double check and emptying out the main line. So what'll happen is we'll get water and air out of this. Now, and that's with number two isolation, obviously, open or close in this case. This is how we might leave it for winterization, just letting the valve breathe since these are resilient, so you'll only trap water behind them. Anyway, if I open this, if I got water and air coming out of this, it's water shut off here, so we're not introducing water to this portion. But if I have water and air coming back in this way, and I open number three, and I got water and air coming out, it tells me second check is failed. Okay, now I don't have a backflow assembly tester's license. I don't have the certification. I know the information, and so that's what that tells me, is that we shouldn't get anything out of here. Now, we might get some disc compression. We might see that if there's a little bit of water in here and this is open, that this jumps up a little bit. But other than that, nothing should come out, or should keep coming out. Now, number two, same thing. If I get anything out of this, I know that, both checks, now at this point, we know both checks are leaking. And I run across a couple every year, and the best thing I can tell people is, hey, get your backflow preventer looked at. It's, from my experience, it's not working properly. So let's look at our checks. Now these are this is gonna be the other thing is I'm not a big fan of 950s. So I'm gonna set you up there. Now we're on the City of Tacoma water, or this was City of Fircrest, which I think is pretty much City of Tacoma water, and we should be able to compress that. We can't. Let's try this one. Yeah, these aren't budging at all. So this is what happens. So you can see this green buildup here on the inside of it. Really common on pretty much just on any kind of water. And what happens on 950s, and I've seen it, and and you can test them, is that even with a pressure gauge, is that these get stuck, and then you get like a 20 or 30 pound drop across it because this can't move in or out. Let's see if we can get a wrench on that really quick. So I got a pair of channel locks. So let's see if we can close that up. Nope, just broke it that time. Alright, so the point is, this should not be seized in there like that. And maybe it's the fact that, you know, this is turned on all year, or maybe it's constantly, maybe there's a leak and it's constantly running water, and this thing will seize, the little plunger will seize in place. Let's see if we can even get that apart. 1 second here. Let me bring it back. Okay, so I gave that some taps. Now, if you look at the clearance, if you follow where my fingers are, if you look at the clearance between the end of the brass up to there, or you look at the distance between the turns of the spring, giving that one a tap, you notice that this compressed and this one isn't. Now, this should spring back normally. It should not do that. So let's take one of these apart and I'll show you more. 1 second. Alright guys, so here's what's going on. So I pulled both of these apart. That's when I double clean. So you can see that when I let go of that, it actually wants to even just take off across the room. And even there's a, yeah, if you look at the top of these, it says caution spring loaded. And that's why this plunger should be able to move freely. It should not bind up in there. So that's what it should act like when I take this apart. It shouldn't just pull apart as one unit like that. This thing should want to pop apart if it's doing its job correctly. So let's look at one of these. So you can see the amount of buildup on there. So this plunger, if I even just stick it in there, it does not want to come back out. So, you know, what's your time worth? You know, and everything too, if we start looking at these, is that we can see a little bit of buildup on them. We can see where the seating edge sits there, that little green groove there. But let's look at something else I found on this double check. If you look down in there, I'm gonna get my long screwdriver. So we can get, okay, see that right there? If we can, there we go. Where's my hand? There. That's a piece of pipe glue. That's a drip from inside the pipe. We can probably match it up maybe over here somewhere. So that got flushed in the double check. That flush into here, gets stuck in the double check, so forth. So the other thing too is when I look at test cocks, maybe we're using a paint can opener or a sideways screwdriver. Looking good. So that one's, I mean, these two are fine, but these two, if you look up real close, you can see where we exposed some new metal on them. So these are both strips. Like I said, it's, you know, those double check at the very least, if I said, hey, it needs service, we send somebody out there, you know, for $90 to $100 an hour, we already know that, okay, these aren't stainless steel handles, they're going to rust off eventually. Both checks would probably need to be replaced, 2 test cocks replaced, and we have a gate valve. So by what we end up doing, we put, you know, taking this out, double boxing, get the permit, get the test done, and pull this out. And so, you know, and I've seen this happen before with these, with 950s, and just a lot of backflow preventers in general, is that they don't get tested, they just live in the ground, the handles rot off of them pretty soon, they don't work, they're hard to, you know, service the rest of the irrigation system when we're trying to adjust these and make sure that we're getting full flow through them, that, you know, there's no drop across them. So I want to make a quick video of that. So the takeaways are, if you've got a pressure problem in the system, don't rule out your double check. You could have a pressure drop across the checks if they're not functioning properly. And the other thing too is, if you're a landscaper, not an irrigation company, you can, in Washington State, at least in Pierce County, where I'm at, it takes, you know, backflow assembly testers certification, a BAT license, to test the backflow. Now, if you want to start getting repairing backflows, then that's a whole specialty plumbing license with L&I. So for example, where we have problems with, you know, pressure drop across checks, am I going to start pulling a double check open? No. You know, is it you know, are we going to start? So there are some fine lines with licensing when it comes to double checks and cross connection. You know, and the other thing too is that these these checks, and another one I had a problem with the 950. They almost like they're Loctite in there, and I've had these assemblies spin around while they're in the ground. So, you know, the other thing too is just going to work on one of these, depending on how it's situated. If it's upside down and backwards in a hole 2 feet deep, by the time you get done wrangling, if it hasn't broken, it's just going to be a headache to deal with. So, um, anyway, that's all I want to show you guys today. We'll bring it back later. Thanks.